Hey, good day, folks, and welcome to another edition of Lumberjack Logic Live. And we have some special guests, folks. We've got some news from New Hampshire that no one else has shared yet out there in the wide world of the internet. And we're going to bring it to you here, but things were not as clean as Governor Sununu wants you to believe in New Hampshire. Okay, so this it's going to be a kind of a surprising report to some, not surprising to others. Oh, I'm sorry, I got this playing in the background. Give me a sec. Okay, so it's going to be there. I didn't know I had that still going. So, anyways, this is an investigative report. We're going to bring you some wild numbers, and people were up late the night of the primary that should not have had to have been to bring you this information, which again, kind of shocking in its revelations. Do want to mention my sponsor really quick, Midas Gold Group, MidasGoldGroup.com, or text Lumberjack to 232-425 to get yourself some silver eagles, some gold maple leaves, whatever you want to get, folks. Real money, real physical, tangible money. MidasGoldGroup.com. Excuse me, I'm coughing. Or you can call them at 480-360-3000, but veteran owners of that company, not commissioned salespeople. So let's bring in our special guests for the day. I'm going to first bring in Tom Murray, known to many of you from the great state of New Hampshire. Tom, say hi.
How are we doing, everyone?
Man, you look like a mob boss. You're stuck there in the dark doings. Anyways, let's bring in Ken. I got Ken on as well. He looks in a well-lit location. He's not doing undercover deals or something. But anyways, well, I got to believe that at this point, Governor Sununu thinks you guys are some sort of mob bosses because you guys bring the heat on this guy. And I absolutely love you for it. And we're going to do a little bit of post-election analysis here as well, because we've heard a lot of things coming out of New Hampshire. We were told that obviously Democrats couldn't vote in the primaries. I'm going to show you some clips on that. Also, I'm going to show you Democrats who did vote in the primaries. So that narrative would be destroyed. Do me one quick favor as you come in, smash that like button if you would. And if you're new, please subscribe. But do hit that like button. Really helps get the stream out. And chat in with where you're from. Let's see who's on the stream today. And as I'm doing that, I guess, who wants to start with what went on in Windham, New Hampshire, again, with a monitor on site from the Secretary of State's office, people? This happened in 2020. It happened in 2022. And now again in 2024. And they had an election monitor in 2022. Okay? So...
And this past Tuesday, we had an election monitor, 2 federal elections in a row. Unprecedented. Go ahead, Tom. Why don't you set it up?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I thought we might have been on our way to actually having a free and fair election until everything just came off the rails and it unfortunately went south really quick. Ken and I and 10 other voters in town, we showed up at 8:45 in the morning, and our state statutes, RSA 659-49, allow us, if you have 10 registered voters, to request that the moderator, who's the individual that conducts the election, postpone any of the counting and processing of the absentee ballots. Because we've had 2 federal elections in a row with, hundreds of violations of election law, we thought it would be a good idea if we tried to keep it stupid simple and allow the election officials to just go ahead and conduct the election and during the day, and we'll count the absentees at the end of the night. Unfortunately, they didn't feel that was going to benefit them somehow, but nonetheless, we had a monitor from the Secretary of State's office, so they really didn't have a choice. So,
if I could insert just for a second, Tom, there's another reason why it would be helpful to put off the processing of the absentee ballots until after the polls close, and that's because the Secretary of State had made an announcement to voters that if you had cast votes for candidates who had dropped out of the race, if you voted absentee, if you can make it to the polls, that you could, when they call your name, because they have to call your name when they're processing the ballot, they call the name, they check it off the checklist. That's an opportunity for people to challenge the vote, but it's also an opportunity for the voter to say, I've changed my mind. Before you cast that ballot, I want to vote again. So that would be an opportunity for them to have changed their vote, right? Because maybe they voted for DeSantis, or they voted for someone else who had made a statement that I'm dropping out of the race. So, that was another opportunity for them to do so.
Yeah,
So
that's a good point, Ken. That's a great point.
Right. And that was all part of our reasoning. We want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to cast a meaningful vote, a legal, meaningful vote.
Right.
And I should note, for those of my audience who do not know Ken Eyring and Tom Murray, these guys have been, covering this, working on this, I should say, not really covering it, working on this to ensure election integrity in the state of New Hampshire here for the last 4 years. And maybe even before that. But, the fact of the matter is that we know who they vote for. They're vocal Trump supporters. But I will tell you, in meeting with them and talking with them, that's not their game. Their game isn't to see Trump get elected. Their game, if you will, is to actually see a free and fair election. That's what these guys are after. And they've proven this time and time again, that that's their intent. All they want is every legal vote counted properly. Period.
Right. So I just want to clarify what I just said about people who voted absentee. Obviously, after the polls closed, they wouldn't be able to change their votes, but they could have picked their ballot off, right? Because the names are on the outer envelopes. They could have picked them off while the polls were still open and asked that they be given a new ballot to cast their votes. So go ahead, Tom. Keep going.
I'm going to put that blind down and get the sun in my eye. Excuse me. So, yes.
Even lighting too. I like that.
Yeah, better lighting. So after that, we went ahead and we processed the absentees. According to the Secretary of State's monitor, she timed it. Took approximately 52 minutes. So it was very timely.
No, it was exactly 52 minutes, because I actually looked at the clock. It was 8:52. So the polls closed at 8 o'clock. At 8:52, the processing of the absentee ballots was done. So it actually took less time than that, because they didn't start processing the absentee ballots exactly at 8 o'clock.
Right. So, and I liked the process because it was transparent. It was done right up to the rail. Everyone could watch. Everyone could see what was going on. If you wanted to challenge a ballot, you had that opportunity right then and there. The only comment I'd have is it was very difficult to hear some of the people read off the names, but all in all, that process went very smoothly. From that,
Tom, I'm sorry, let me cut in one more time. Sure. Tom even made that statement to the Deputy Secretary of State, who was there as the appointed monitor. He was very complimentary of the process up to that point. So he was on record as making that statement.
Yeah. And so
then it all went haywire. What went wrong?
Not yet.
1 + 1 = 3. No, that's not it. 1 + 1 = 4. No. 2 + 2 = 6. No, that's not it either. I mean, we're talking about adding up the total number of votes that were cast in 4 different AccuVote machines. So 4 voting machines, right? Now, Let's be clear. There was one race for the Republicans. There was one race for the Democrats, right?
Right.
And 4 machines. So if you have a spreadsheet, then you have 4 columns, 1 for each machine, and you have a 5th column for the hand-counted votes. That's it. You could do that on paper with a pencil. And the Deputy Secretary of State said it would take 10 minutes to do it.
I agree.
Transcribing every number over and adding them up. It's second grade math, folks. It's simple addition.
Right.
And they were done pretty much counting the
write-in ballots,
all of the votes, all the write-in ballots by about 9:30 at night. They printed the paper tapes from the machines about 9:30 at night. They may have counted, maybe 1 or 2 of the tables went a little bit longer past 9:30, but for the most part, all the tables were done. They had 10 tables counting 300 and something ballots. So, on average, it was only 30 to 40 ballots per table.
And that was right on
par. To count those.
Yeah, that was right on par with other municipalities. I mean, in fact, Manchester reported at 9:30 at night. I mean, Manchester's a city. It's one of our largest cities in the state. And
so
they
Tom,
reported at 9:30.
So, Tom, what time did they stop? Did they make an announcement?
Not until 1:30 in the morning the following
4 hours later. It took 4 hours to do second grade math. Tom has video. Now, the thing that's disturbing about this is that the narrative around town, this is why our government never changes, right? The narrative around town is that the process of counting the votes and reporting the totals was all because Tom Murray and Ken Eyring demanded that all of the absentee ballots be processed after the polls closed. So we
But wait, now
caused
just to
4
remind
hours
the
delay.
audience, though, on that, those were counted by what time?
They were counted. They were counted by 8:52 in the evening.
Okay, I just people are jumping on the stream. I just want
well before 1:30 in the morning.
So I'm just going to ask a few questions here. Just so you're having it's not rectifying, basically, right? I mean, this is like, balance, taking a bank, right? The teller has to say, wait, I gave out this much money during the course of the day. I took in this much money, and now this much money is in my drawer. It's simple accounting. And if their drawer is off by a penny, that's actually a problem in a bank. And how many votes were you off by?
Well, that's a good question, because we didn't know the first time, because they wouldn't announce. Because keep in mind, the last time they did this, they were off by almost 1,000.
And they told us in that election, that was the 2022 primary. They told us they were off by a couple dozen.
Yeah.
When in reality they were off by what was it, 959?
I think is what.
959 ballots, and that was the number of voters. Back in 2022, as we talked about in the previous podcast with you, Neil, they were off by 1,333 ballots compared to actual people who had voted. So, there's disturbing things that have occurred in Windham now, 3 federal elections in a row.
Yeah, 2020, we had the largest numerical discrepancy in state history
between election day and a recount. Right.
So this is nuts. So now how did this get rectified? And just give me like the short version of how this all got.
I mean, in my opinion, I felt as though the Secretary of State's appointee, the monitor, did a really good job. She was quite often and frequently offering assistance. How can I help? Now you got to keep in mind, it's a monitor, not there to run and conduct the election. She's there to monitor the election. So she was offering assistance, making suggesting that, again, to Ken's point, this is second grade math, that perhaps we can just get a piece of paper. Do you have your total amount of ballots received?
Wait, are you talking hand counting now? I mean,
you could do it either way. And it's important to point out, Tom, that the monitor is also has an accounting background.
Yeah.
So clearly she can do second grade math.
Yeah. Yeah. And she was acutely aware of the situation. Interestingly enough, the actual elected monitor himself did nothing. Just sat.
No, he sat there. Tom, you have that on video, and that's the disturbing part.
And
the narrative
was a painful video, just watching this individual just sit there and do nothing.
And the deputy moderator as well. And the narrative around town is that it's all because of Tom and Ken.
Yeah, because we made them wait 52 minutes to correctly and accurately process absentee ballots.
And you actually, just let me go back on that, Tom. I think from our earlier conversation that I had with you, you had to get that, because they wanted to just go ahead and count it anyways. And you're like, no, we got to wait till afterwards to count. And you had to bring somebody in to get that resolved, didn't you?
Yeah, well, it's amazing what you can do when you know the law. So RSA 659-49 states that the default was they can start processing absentees at 1 o'clock. However, if they properly notice, which they did not do, in 24 hours in advance, they can open as early as 2 hours after the polls open, which would have been 9 o'clock. However, they never properly noticed, so they couldn't do it at 9. They would have been defaulted to 1. But we kind of took that out of the hands, because if you show up with 10 registered voters and they have to be present, you can make the moderator count them after the polls. It's state statute. It's RSA 659-49. We did that in writing. We had the signatures. We had all the individuals behind us. They verified they were on the checklist. And the Secretary of State monitor was there during that. So they were kind of forced into having to follow the law. Imagine that.
Well, I want to make special note here for those in the audience who are listening now. So I'm an election judge in my town. I mean, that's something I think you guys should all do. If you're listening to this stream, become an election judge, become a poll watcher, something, man. Just get out there and get involved in this process. If you're frustrated with it, get involved. You will always feel like you're losing if you're not involved, and I really mean that. I mean, that's involvement will always, because now and look at these guys, they actually know the law, so they're able to bring 10 people. They got the 10 people there. They're prepared ahead of time. They're going to make sure this process is right, and that's going to be on you people to actually learn and know that law so you can deal with that in your state, because it's different from state to state. But they knew that law. They had that's what you call in the negotiation process knowledge power. There's different powers in negotiation. There's reverent power, knowledge power, charismatic power, so on. Like a pastor would have reverent power. Well, these guys have knowledge power. They're going in there and they've got the knowledge of the law on their side. And that's what you need to do. I'm just telling you. I mean, because I get so frustrated. I'll see people say, "Oh, it's over. I'm like, we're going to lose forever. It's rigged." I stop it. Just stop the nonsense. Get involved. This is the most important election of your lives.
Yeah, I think most people feel intimidated and self-pressure, and they don't go through that step of making sure that our elections are performed properly, because they don't want to be demonized by the ones that they're asking to follow the laws. And from Tom and I's perspective, that's all we want. We just want our laws to be followed. It's not personal. We're not vindictive. We're not negative. We don't attack them. We just simply instruct them as to what the laws are and that they should follow them. And we're very courteous and respectful while we go through that process. But from my perspective, and Tom's as well, if they take that the wrong way, or if they take that personally, well, that's their problem, because this is what they signed up for. They swear an oath to the Constitution, and they swear an oath to follow New Hampshire election laws and procedures when they accept the position of being an election official. And if you're not going to follow the laws, if you're not going to follow the procedures, the election procedures in New Hampshire are very well documented. They're in an election procedure manual. It gets updated every 2 years. And if you read it, and Tom and I both have read it, it's hundreds of pages long.
453.
There's a section with just a few pages specific for the moderator, a few pages specific to the town clerk, and it lays out clearly what their responsibilities are. There's also sections that explain how to reconcile an election and how to cross-reference data between the election day voter checklist, right? So as people check in, you show them your license, they hand you a ballot, they actually put a mark next to your name. They put a line through your name. So they know that, okay, Ken Eyring just was handed a ballot, he's voted. So if someone else comes in later in the day and says, "I'm Ken Eyring," and they ask for the address and it matches, they'll say, "You already voted. You don't get another ballot," right? So at the end of the night, they reconcile how many Republicans on each page, how many Democrats on each page. They write it at the bottom of the page. And then they go through each of the pages. They tally that up. And that's one way to accurately calculate how many voters there were in the polling place that evening. Another way, as a cross-reference, and this is all part of the documentation to make it simple, dead nuts, easy, simple, is to go to the voting machines, and each of those machines register how many ballots were cast. And you take all the ballots cast from each of the 4 machines plus the hand-counted ballots, and you add them up. It's not rocket science. Now you compare that number to the number that you got by counting up all the voters on the election day checklist, and they should match. And Tom and I have a really close friend who's an ex-election monitor. And she said, if you're off by more than 2, that's a serious problem. So, that's one of the ways to validate how many people voted. Another way is to physically count the ballots. And the Deputy Secretary of State second highest election official in New Hampshire, was there in Windham on Tuesday night. When they were having issues, she did offer her assistance multiple times, was denied her ability to help multiple times until I think finally she was fed up enough and very nicely, I think, inserted herself and her assistant into the process to help them kind of figure out how to get all the numbers reconciled. But it's not rocket science. And one of the things that she had recommended early on in the night is to just physically count the ballots. You have all the ballots that came out of the machines, count them. That'll tell you how many people voted.
Yeah, we only had 47 and change ballots. I don't have the exact number, 4734, I think is what it was. But I can't overstate Ken's point about how simple this process really is. Yes, there's 453 pages of election procedures, but when you really start reading them, it's just so common sense. But they just detail it in excruciating detail. But once you read it, I mean, it's pretty.
It's not like we're dealing with rocket science here, people. Exactly. And I don't want you to get intimidated by a 453-page manual or bogged down in all this. I mean, I am trying to encourage you right now to get involved in the process because it's imperative. And if you ever doubt the power of the people, and we're talking not only the power of the people, I'm gonna pop something into the stream here. I just want to show everybody something here quick. This is right now these states that have lined up with Texas, and this may seem like a sidebar, but it's really not. This is Texas dealing with a border crisis and other people stepping up to say, hey, we are united against the absolute breach of the Constitution of the United States of America. Now, each of you have a constitution for your state. Okay, your state constitution states that you have the power. The power is vested in you, the people. Okay, so you need to be involved in that process. You have the right to remove these people, but to do that, you got to be involved. So I know I'm trying to like get this a shorter version here, guys, but help me out here. How did this all end?
Well, they finally at 1:30 in the morning, they made an announcement. However, it was an inaccurate announcement. So
you reported wrong totals. Is that?
We reported wrong totals at 1:30 a.m. in the following day, on Wednesday.
And then they came back, about 5 or 10 minutes later?
Probably 10 minutes later, they had forgot to add a couple books, and they came back. And I think I heard, but there was about 26. I think that's the number I heard they were off by, but I don't know that. I haven't confirmed that.
And what was the total number of ballots cast in your?
It was. I think it was. I have a picture.
No, I didn't total them up. Did you, Tom?
North of 5,000?
No, I think it's somewhere around 5,000, give or take. It's
right around 5,000. Okay, so
much.
I'm just trying to put this in perspective. So on the last round, you're 26 off on a total of 5,000. So I want to put that in perspective. That's
83.
Okay, so we're talking actually then more than 0.5%.
And that's the Republican primary only. That's the Republican primary. There was only 967 in the Democrat primary.
But again, how many races in the 2020 election were decided by less than 0.5%?
Right.
This is crazy. You can't be up by 26 freaking votes out of 4,700 and some.
Yeah,
it doesn't work.
That's a good point.
And you guys are actually, I want to get your guys' take on this too. I'm going to drop a video in here, and I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. See if you think what this gal is saying is accurate.
His concern is that's why he's been talking about and pushing a false claim that Democrats can vote in today's election. As we know, they can't. The cutoff, as every official in New Hampshire has reminded us, including Republicans, was back in October. But Trump has been pushing that.
Okay, so what's the story on this, guys?
So that report is completely disingenuous. That's not what happened at all. So there's a lot of layers to this. So, hey, look who's here!
Sununu.
He got a tan.
George,
The sun finally came up in New Hampshire.
Oh God, same great sense of humor. Good to see you, George.
So, how are you guys doing, man? I know
awesome.
your state's corrupt and all, but
Yep, we have some issues. We have some issues.
yeah,
we have the gold standard in elections.
Yeah.
Actually, you guys are a little bit ungrateful because I live in Colorado. We exported this to you. So how do you think I feel? How do you think I feel going to my desk and picking up 2 mail-in ballots they sent out to me?
Wow.
Don't live here.
Well,
wait.
Vote early, vote often, right?
You got 2 ballots, George, in your name?
Yeah, Neil, you would think it was like for an important election, but it was for a race with a bunch of statewide issues, and they still sent me ballots for people that live in California. And here's the concerning thing. We had other elections, and they only sent me, my ballot. So I don't know what's going on, but, I'll keep this for, as a souvenir. I'm not sending it back. I want the county to be reminded every single time they watch me that I got you on plasma TV, man, 4K.
So Tom, go back though to this clip. This lady just told us that Democrats can't
join us. I gotta remind Chris Sununu here about his tweet, and I'm gonna read this to you. This was yesterday's tweet from @Gov Chris Sununu. Thank you to our local election officials, thousands of volunteers, and @NH Secretary Scanlon for their countless hours of work to ensure yesterday's primary. I'm gonna stop right there. Sounds good. This is where it kind of goes off. Yesterday's primary went off without a hitch.
Hey, do you guys know
every vote counted in a timely 1:30 on a secure fashion? New Hampshire's first and best in the nation. I don't know, Chris. I think Windham's got you proved wrong on that one, pal.
Yeah. Hey, Neil, I want to also chime in on that. The comment about Democrats voting in the Republican primary. There was a cutoff.
Yes.
Right. So if somebody was a registered Democrat on Tuesday, they could not come in and get a Republican ballot. But I think the cutoff date was October. And Chris Sununu,
yes,
our quote, Republican governor, encouraged Democrat voters to switch party affiliations to either undeclared or Republican, and also encouraged undeclared voters to vote for Nikki Haley.
Can I ask you how he went about that? So how did he ask the Republicans?
He was all over the state. He was public.
Yeah.
He was just like on the news, like just press conference, whatever, at rallies saying to do it, because they did actually spend, I did a special report today on Nikki Haley out there and the super PAC that's trying to, get all these independents and Democrats to vote for her. And they did actually pay to send out a text message, and they got 3,800 people to switch party affiliation. So, and then on top of that, and I just want to prove to the audience, because, some people are like, I know there's always, when we got 5,000 plus people on a stream, you're going to have people who are from the other side of the political aisle, and they're saying, no, Neil, that's not true. So I'm going to show you exactly how true that is. I'm going to pop.
Folks coming into the polls, do you identify as a Republican? Do you identify as a Democrat? Or do you identify as an independent? And here's what we found in this exit poll so far. And I think this jumps right out at you. A minority of voters in this first wave of the exit poll in the Republican primary identify as Republicans. A majority, 53%, identify as either independents, 45%, or, and this is a high number historically, 8% identify as Democrats. For some context here, in 2016, the last competitive Republican presidential primary in New Hampshire, the electorate was 55% Republican. It was 42% independent, and it was 3% Democratic. So in this initial wave, you're seeing some significant differences from 2016.
Okay, so I'm going to pause on this screen, but look at the difference there. Just a 5% jump in Democrats voting in the Republican primary. These are people that switched their party affiliation. And then look at these independents. Okay, you have a bunch of, let's see, we're, 42 versus 45. And then here, though, stunning, the Republicans down from 55 to 47%. And this is why Trump's victory in New Hampshire was far bigger than 11%.
That's right. I read this morning that that 70% of the votes that Nikki Haley got were from independents and Democrats.
Yes.
I want to make
that clearly shows that the Democrats wanted Nikki Haley to win, and because a vast majority of those who voted for Nikki Haley intend to vote for Biden or whoever the Democrat nominee is. So they want
really
Nikki Haley in there so that Donald Trump would not sweep yet again another election.
Ken, this sounds like
rally outside of mine.
No, sorry. You go on, George. I'm just going to pull this one out.
This sounds like good news to me because you're telling me we basically had a general election where Trump won. That's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that in November you're going to have Trump win in New Hampshire. That's what I'm hearing.
Nikki Haley got more votes from of that 70% that were undeclared or Democrat that voted for Nikki Haley. That was more votes than Joe Biden got.
Okay, so watch this, guys. Here's some voters. I've just got two. I mean, I had so many of these clips. I'm just putting two in here. Here you go.
I've been speaking to voters all day, and there's really been two types of voters generally who I've been speaking to. One, registered Democrats who are writing in Joe Biden as a show of solidarity, a symbolic show of solidarity with the president. And the other, which is an undeclared voter who has a more liberal leading ideology and who seems to be voting for Nikki Haley almost strategically. And one of those voters is with me right now, Christian, a freshman from Dartmouth College, rather. Christian, who did you vote for and why?
Yeah, so thank you. I voted for Nikki Haley, and it was certainly a strategic vote. I think the DNC is fairly resolute in their nomination for Joe Biden. And while I wouldn't vote for her in a general election, particularly on our differences with climate change solution, a women's right to bodily autonomy, or incarceration rates, I think a vote for Nikki Haley helps diminish Trump's influence in the RNC and their nomination, but is also a vote towards democracy.
And Christian is emblematic of so many conversations that I've had here throughout the day. Rachel?
Nikki Haley.
And why did you vote for Nikki Haley?
It's a vote against Trump. I think it would be better to have her against Biden in the elections than it would be Trump and her.
Do you consider yourself generally independent, Republican, or Democrat?
Democrat.
So when you undeclared, you voted for Nikki Haley. If it was Nikki Haley against Joe Biden in a general election, who are you voting for?
Joe Biden.
There you go.
Right.
And they're telling us that Trump was lying. No, Trump was telling the truth. Yeah, people had switched party affiliation, and then all these quote unquote independents who are actually Democrats were voting in the Republican primary. And so, yes, Nikki Haley only actually won 27% of the Republican vote.
So they knew this was going to happen, guys, too, by the way. So back in January last year, there was actually a resolution that was passed at the Republican committee. And it was actually Karen Testament who put forward that resolution. And what was supposed to have happened is the primary was supposed to be closed. In fact, I'm going to read to you guys the statute. It's RSA 654-34, and it's :4. It says, no person who is already registered to vote, whether his party membership has been previously registered or not, shall affiliate with a party or disaffiliate from a party between the first Wednesday in June and the day before the state primary election. So this was the lawsuit, the federal lawsuit that was filed by Karen Testament, Wayne Saya, and Lynn Briggs went to federal court, and they got it dismissed on standing, which I thought was ridiculous.
I'm so sick of these freaking dismissals based upon procedural crap. The bar is BS.
Well, you know what's funny is they should be reading the Moore v. Harper SCOTA 6-3 decision, because that's pretty much established the fact that these people do have standing.
Right.
But the point that I wanted to make is that there was a couple significant things happened during that time frame from June to October 6th. And that was that Biden was removed from the ballot. And the second thing was RFK switched from a Democrat to become an independent. So what you really did is there was you disinclined Democrat voters to participate in their own primary. Thusly, the clips you just showed is exactly what happened. You had Democrat voters participating in the GOP, thusly disenfranchising members of the GOP party.
And then on top of that, you have wrong totals in the city of Windham. And I'm sure you're not the only city, but the problem is most cities aren't being watched. And so when people get, a lot of times, I think this stuff just isn't even brought up.
Well, no, I would agree with you, Neil. I feel very strongly that people need to get off the couch, stop Monday morning quarterbacking, get out there and go to your polls and count, volunteer, become an election worker. No better way to serve our country is to go ahead and, I think it should be a national holiday. Personally, I think we should all take the day off, just like you have, appointed jurors. You have to jury duty. You should have poll counting duty, and show up and count,
Yeah. Speaking of jury duty, I got one. I'm going to. It better not be an election case because I know where I lean. I know where I'm leaning. But yeah, no. So as Chris Sununu, I have not done my daily cry session because I lost. Nikki lost, so I'm going to go cry and fester in sadness. But great show.
Hey, you guys, George, good to have you on. Just make sure too, guys. Firebrand Media is where George is posting videos with my friend Marcus over there.
I'm not doing that anymore, Neil. I'm posting videos on mypillow.com promo code Lumberjack Logic. Yeah, I got it. See what I did there?
So,
all right, thanks, George.
Hey, Neil, I'd like to point out something that's interesting too that I believe is. Yeah. As we talked about earlier, the same people who have run the last 3 federal elections in Windham, and we've had a couple of local elections in between as well, since 2020. Mistakes have been made, countless mistakes have been made. And what's disturbing is that they don't acknowledge that they've made mistakes. They dismiss them as being petty. They dismiss them as being, quote, background noise, unquote. And the thing that really comes to my mind, and I ran this by Tom the other day, and he agreed, is that, even though we've just become aware of this for the past, 3.5 years, this could have been going on for a long, long time because our moderator's been the town moderator. He's on his 30th year. These are the types of mistakes that should not be made. And the deputy moderator, who's also our school district moderator, she's been doing that for probably, I don't know, I think it's at least close to 20 years, I believe. So with that type of, election, quote, expertise, unquote, you'd think that they'd have a pretty good sense of what their responsibilities are and the fact that they should be able to do second grade math. I served on the Secretary of State's Committee of Voter Competence. Secretary Dave Scanlon asked me to serve on his committee with 7 other people. We traveled around the state and we listened to people and their concerns. And, the secretary wanted to know, do you have confidence in New Hampshire elections or not? And why? And I asked several people, several election officials in several towns, if they felt that people who were in elected election positions, should there be mandatory training for them? And everyone said no. And in my mind, there absolutely has to be mandatory training. And then they should take a test and they should have to pass that test in order to serve. So, and
that's nuts.
And living in Windham and seeing what goes on in Windham, it's proof that we need to have people who are qualified. And the qualifications is not a high bar. Second grade math is not a high bar. I explained earlier in this podcast what needs to be done in order to reconcile the elections. If Tom and I had stepped in on Tuesday night. We could have wrapped it up probably in about half an hour to 45 minutes. And that would be starting from scratch. And that would be super thorough. That would be counting all of the ballots, counting all of the votes, all of the voters who are on the election day checklist, and also totaling up the votes that were tallied by the voting machines and so on. All the different procedures and methods that are defined in the election procedures manual. It's not difficult, especially on election night when you've got 30 people helping you out. A lot of hands makes easy work, but they don't take advantage of that. And they definitely didn't take advantage of the offer from the Deputy Secretary of State, which in my mind was just a huge mistake. They could have wrapped it up so much sooner, but they didn't.
Is it just like a turf war for them? Is it a pride issue? What do you think's going on there?
I'm not going to speculate. These people, they don't seem to think clearly in my mind. They take things personally when they shouldn't.
In the sense of individuals, I think it's a turf war just in the sense that they don't want to admit that they've, that
they're incompetent, Tom?
Well, they are. I mean, I hate to say it's not personal. They are incompetent. And I think that's the struggle. I mean, who wants to admit you're stupid, right?
One of our selectmen, we have a town of 5 selectmen. So that's a board of people who run our local government. And one of them was brave enough to step up and ask for the resignations of the moderator and deputy moderator a few weeks before the election. Now, part of the team, the election team in our town, by law includes the selectmen. So 3 of those selectmen were present at the previous elections. And the one that Tom and I filed a complaint with the AG listing 33 violations, 3 of those were there. So what did they do in response to Bruce's press release calling for the resignations of Peter Griffin and Betty Dunn? They attacked Bruce. They didn't come and say, well, these are valid issues. These are valid concerns. We want to make sure that our elections are pristine and accurate. Now, what they do is they try to change the focus of Bruce's concerns and attacked him instead. Does that sound like something that happens in every other town, every other city, and nationally? When something goes wrong in our government, it's never fixed because the people circle the wagons. The people in government circle the wagons. They cover their friends' asses. And that's what is trying to happen here in Windham. But Tom and I, we just keep bringing people back to the focus of the issue.
And here's the issue right here.
Bruce was accused of attaching the town seal to his press release, calling for the resignations of those 2 election officials. But he didn't. His press release was on a blank sheet of paper with just his words describing why he was concerned and why they should resign. Someone out in the internet ethernet, they grabbed his press release, they attached the town seal to it, and they redistributed that. And our selectman then called for Bruce to be censured and gave him a slap on the wrist. So the discussion moved away from the ineptitude of our election officials to Bruce violating law. Well, he didn't violate law. He didn't violate law at all. Bruce didn't speak as a member of our town government. He spoke as an individual.
Okay, Tom, what do you got there? I see you chomping at the bit.
Yeah, what I wanted to say is what the town selectmen did not do, and they still have yet to do, is inform the citizens of our town that they got this letter from the Attorney General's office.
Tom, read off who filed the complaint against. There's 10 names on there.
The 10 names are on the complaint, and I don't know.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you need to call that.
That's okay. While you're pulling that up, I'll mention my sponsor real quick again. Midas Gold Group, MidasGoldGroup.com. Text Lumberjack to 232-425. You are talking to veteran owners, people. You get free silver with a qualifying order if you use code Lumberjack at 232-425. And veteran owners, not commission salespeople. Great guys. I love James, the owner of the company out there. One of the owners who I talk to most. Just wonderful folks over there at Midas Gold Group. So check that out. You got it, Tom?
I do. So the complaint lists Peter Griffin, our town moderator, Betty Dunn, the assistant moderator, Galen Stearns. That's the individual that sat in the seat for 4 hours.
Scratching his head.
4 hours trying to do second grade math. Painful. Nicole Merrill, Windham Town Clerk, who happened conveniently not to be there.
Yeah.
You know who was up for re-election this March? Miss Merrill.
And Peter.
And then Roger Hohenberger,
A selectman.
he was there Tuesday night and into Wednesday
previous
morning.
Elections.
He was on
You're
the
really making friends out there, Tom. I see you and Ken. You're just like, it's...
we just got a really, really big flashlight and we like to play with it.
How to win friends and influence people.
I got a question. I got a question for the
like
audience.
Dark places.
As you've been watching this stream today, I want to ask a question of you in the audience. So you're hearing a story of vast incompetency here, okay? And this is in Windham now, 3 elections in a row.
Federal elections. It also happens in the local elections too.
Yes. So however many elections, but 3 federal elections, okay? 3 federal elections in a row. This kind of level of incompetence. Do you honestly think that Windham, New Hampshire is the only place this happens? Yes or no? I mean, do you think that this is just a rare case in Windham and that it doesn't exist elsewhere? Or do you think this is a little more widespread than we're led to believe? Because to your point,
Georgia.
Oh, no, Georgia, no. It's clean.
Arizona, no, not at all.
No.
We have good election officials in other towns. Tom and I know them personally.
We
and
do.
They know how to.
We do.
They know how to run the elections. They follow the laws. But one of the things that really shocked me is that when I served on the committee of voter competence, the Secretary of State's committee, we had people come and testify in almost every one of those towns, and they said that they didn't have competence in our elections. And many of them referenced Windham, New Hampshire. That shocked me because I didn't know these people. I never heard from them before. And a lot of people, hundreds of people, reached out to Tom and I over the course of the time that was being investigated. So I got to know a large number of people who had become aware of what was going on in Windham.
Yeah.
And for people across this state to identify our tiny little town as being a major concern of theirs and why they had a lack of confidence in our elections, that really rung home to me.
Ken, I've probably gotten a dozen phone calls since Tuesday night. And the other complaint that I'm getting from people around town is the fact that this letter is not strong enough.
Well, a lot of people don't even know about it. Our selectmen are hiding it up. It's by omission, right?
Yeah.
They've not mentioned it in their selectmen's meeting, and they're making sure they're doing their best to make sure that the town doesn't know about it. But Tom and I, we will make sure that the town is aware of that letter.
And moreover, the lack of diligence on behalf of the Attorney General. I think the Attorney General actually plays a role in this because
big time.
What they're doing is they're whitewashing things, and they're not going ahead and making the point of how egregious these mistakes are. And
Yeah.
they did it 3 times.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Violation.
the response letter from the Attorney General kind of downplayed everything.
Yes.
I want to share another clip with you guys. I want to see if you guys have seen this. This is straight fire, and I want to make sure I get this on before the stream's done. So let me just get this in quick.
Charles, you talked about the issues here and how immigration here is at the top, but it also is an economic issue, and it crosses all boundaries. And it is a weakness for President Biden and the Democrats. Dean Phillips talks about this on the trail, and he talks about how Democrats demean MAGA voters. He talked about it with me today, saying that, it's just strange that they're talking about a group of voters like that.
Yeah, and I don't think it's narcissism. I think if it's, you've lived in New York long enough, you know it's maybe a New York thing. Someone punches you, you punch him back harder. That's the way I grew up in Harlem.
Not if the country's at stake, right?
He became president of the United States with that same personality. I don't think that, listen, I think it's worse with Biden calling MAGA. Biden's anger and vitriol and hatred for MAGA is far more worse than President Trump's individual battles with someone who crosses him. Bingo. That is something that is really detrimental to this country, that the president of the United States despises half of the United States. President Biden, I said earlier today, about a week ago, I had a segment coming up, so I Googled Biden hates MAGA. Nothing but articles after articles after articles. He has expressed hatred for half of the country.
Who's writing those articles?
It doesn't matter.
And it's not.
Because the bottom line is he says it. He has vitriol for them. And so does MSNBC, and so does CNN, and so does the New York Times. They have vitriol for half of the nation. They don't look at them like fellow Americans, and it's unfortunate. They try to paint them as racist. All the things that they do to their fellow Americans who simply want a safe home, a safe community, for their children to have prosperity. They want the same thing, but they demean them all the time. That's why I think Phillips was so intriguing, because he went to a rally to find out for himself. And guess what? Golly, these are some pretty cool people. They're just like us.
Exactly what Jamie Dimon said this week as well. And it's smart to understand. And also you see the shift that's happening, right? You look at black voters, Hispanic voters, college women, Latinos who have moved towards Trump.
Yes.
So it's no longer that people are in these boxes based on what their gender is or what they look like. They appear to want, a safe country, and they appear to want a good economy, regardless of what label they have.
That's completely fine, and I know that the lines have shifted dramatically, but Joe Biden's responsible for a lot of that. You say that he's demeaned half the country. First of all, it's 74 million people that voted for Donald Trump, and he is explicit every time he talks about the MAGA movement to say that this is a subsection of the Republican Party, which is borne out in elections when you see people voting against Donald Trump. And this idea that
but what about the people voting for him? What about the people voting for him? He gives teleprompter speeches. I mean, you have to understand.
Yes, but he is talking about insurrectionists.
No.
Yes, he is.
No.
Why is he talking about January 6th? And he says
MAGA like it's a swear word, instead of a slogan.
If you get called regularly, and which Democrats do, thugs, he's the commander-in-chief, pedophiles,
why can he call the border a crisis while he's denigrating and castigating Americans? No, the voters are talking about that, Jessica.
But
excuse me, respectfully, the president of the United States, the commander-in-chief, went to Philadelphia a year and a half ago with a Marine posted behind him.
I saw.
And gave a decidedly political speech where he insulted a large part of the country. And I've said many times on this network, and I'll say it again tonight, if people, a lot of people, spend a fraction of the time that they spend obsessing over Donald Trump, the person, learning one thing about the Trump voter, things may be very different. This is Joe Biden's version of Hillary's deplorable and irredeemable.
And here's one thing. We're going to be talking about this for many months. So we have to move on.
I'm excited.
Okay.
Wow.
Can I make a statement about that?
Yeah.
I think they're off the mark by just a little bit. They talk about Biden making fun of MAGA voters. People who are identified as MAGA voters, those are people who love our country. Joe Biden doesn't love our country. He doesn't love our founding principles. He hates America. Donald Trump loves America. So in spite of Donald Trump's flaws that people get hung up with, Donald Trump loves America. And that's why he is such a popular person, because he says what other people are afraid to say.
Well, and I was out at the rally in New Hampshire with Tom, and I'm telling you, that's actually the first time I had been to a Trump election rally, and it was phenomenal. I mean, these people, it was so much fun because it turned out a lot of these people at the event knew me, so it's fun in that sense. I mean, they had one lady, she's so great. She comes up to me and she goes, "Are Are you? I said, yes, I am. she goes, this is the greatest day of my life. First, I get to meet Donald Trump, and now I get to meet you. You know, they're a fun crowd, and it's just a cross section of America. Many of the people at that rally, I mean, rich, poor, but there are many people who are just middle of the road Americans, or people who are actually in the poverty bracket and facing an uphill climb in a country where inflation has gone rampant and insane. And God bless them. I love them because they're just people. Yeah. And we're going to bring this stream to a close, but I guess any parting words real quick?
I don't really have any. I think we covered everything here. My parting words were for your viewers and your listeners. Please get out there, participate, find out how you can join your local election team and participate in elections, count, poll watch. Get involved.
I'm not done. Tom and I are going to follow up with the Attorney General's office regarding their response to our complaint, in which they labeled election laws and procedure violations. They used the terms, they were mistakes and issues. And when you downplay something like that, I want them to correct their language. I want them to correct their letter, and I want to see some changes. And if we don't see changes in the election officials in Windham, then it's time for the people who were involved in the investigation on behalf of the AG's office to be removed from office, because they swear an oath to the Constitution of the United States and also the state of New Hampshire to enforce our election laws, and they're failing to do that. So that's the next step. We're not done. We're just beginning. We want to make sure that we have people in place. What's it called, Tom? A trust indenture? These people are there on our behalf. You pointed it out early on. We, the people, are the government. These people are just there to represent us. We don't report to them. It's the other way around. And, they would like for us to forget that. And in fact, our schools don't teach that anymore. And that makes it more difficult for people to realize, why we have the rights that we have and all of the rights that we do have. So we have to defend that. We have to make sure that we go after these people and that we have our laws enforced so that when we have elections, they're run properly and they become the gold standard. That's my goal. That's Tom's goal. I don't care what your ideologies are. Just follow the laws, follow the proper procedures, and make sure that every legal vote is counted properly.
And can I add 10 seconds to that? This is from our New Hampshire Constitution, to Ken's point. This is Article 8, accountability of magistrates and officers and the public's right to know. All power residing originally in and being derived from the people. All the magistrates and the officers of government are their substitutes and agents, and at all times accountable to them.
Amen.
Someone got arrested for saying that word in a Governor Sununu meeting.
Oh, I know it. I've seen these things. Hey, I got to mention my other sponsor quick, MyPillow. You have a MyPillow, Tom. I know you do.
I do
too. You have one, Ken?
Oh my God! We've got 2 MyPillow pillows for everyone in my house, and we bought MyPillow pillows for both of my parents and Tindy's parents as well. Cool. They're awesome.
Yeah. Oh, I love them. I mean, and this is the new MyPillow 2.0 with the cooling fabric technology. You can use promo code Lumberjack at mypillow.com for big savings, actually up to 80% off right now because they're doing the after Christmas clearance sales. Thanks so much for joining us today on another edition of Lumberjack Logic. Remember, if you're new, please do subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode. Peace out.